Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 925. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today is July 22nd, 2025.
All right, welcome to another show of Anglican Unscripted. This is our happy place where Kevin and George get to sit down and talk about the stories they found over the last week on the internet. And once again, it may be July when news is supposed to be slow, but it's not slow. So we have a lot to discuss here. Here in Maryland, the weather has broken. The humidity is gone. Finally, we went from like 1,000% humidity and we're down to 60. And I can go outside on an 85, 90 degree day when the humidity is that low and the dew point's low. But otherwise, this is just a putrid, humid place, George. How are you doing down in Florida?
That's wonderful. We're in the rainy season. Mm-hmm. We've had thunderstorms this morning. And this is the time of year when Kevin and I will be recording. There'll be a big crack. And my internet's down because the cable line has been fried. And so we take it, we pray, Lord, each day, strike the Catholics across the street instead of us.
Instead of us. So let's get on here. How's your week going here?
Pretty good. I was mentioning to you, I had my first incident in church in a long time. Mm-hmm. I talk about not bringing politics into the pulpit, and I now need to have a rule not into the coffee hour either. We have two parishioners who are guards at the Everglades Alcatraz. There's no place to live there, so basically they have housing there. They're on 4 days, off 4 days,
right?
And so they commute down there from up here. And we had a woman berate one of the people in coffee hour for working at the Everglades Alcatraz immigration prison for persecuting poor little aliens. And I'm thinking, whoa. And so I went in and I was very clever. I went up to her and said, "Oh, Doris," that's not her name. I said, "I've been meaning to ask you, we need somebody to do the Flower Guild for next Thursday. Are you free?" Of course, knowing that she'd rather run away, and do anything but show up and trim roses on Thursday. So that solved the situation. But man, politics has become really personal.
It really has
these days.
I mean, I've always gone to politically diverse churches since '93. You can't not. And so in that, I've seen how politics has changed so much in the last 5, 10, 15 years to it's no longer politics as usual. It's politics on a theological level. This is evil versus good. Mm-hmm. My side is good, holy, and righteous. Your side is evil, dangerous, and wicked. And when we make politics good versus evil, especially with the biases we have now on the internet, that's how it's going to end up in our churches and coffee hours. You evil, evil person. And is this the alligator Alcatraz place
Yes.
to talk about?
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a friend about alligator Alcatraz and why would they fill all the alligators around this? I said, no. Every body of water in Florida, bar none, has alligators in it. They couldn't get them out. Or snakes. We have a little pond in Webster in Florida Grand. This pond is probably 8 miles from any other water source. Still has 2 alligators in this pond. And all they do is eat birds that land too close to them in the pond all day long. They love it.
And small dogs.
And small little puppies. And so that's just a reality that gets blown out of proportion. This is a holding detention area where we hold people till we can determine whether or not they have a reason to stay in America. And that's all it is. The press has called this an alligator-moated area. And every body of water in Florida has alligators. Every body of water outside of Florida has sharks. It is what it is. It's a peninsula in the ocean. So it's crazy, George. And so, yeah, good versus evil is the new political norm. And it's going to be that way until we can figure out how to have a civil war or become of one accord again. I don't know which is going to happen sooner. So let's move on to some of the...
One of the things I do want to mention is that it does make a difference to have Christians involved in things like being correctional officers.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, these two men are believing, faithful, good Christian men, and they bring that attitude to the world around them. And I think, it's a shame that we have to have prisons in this world. But if we have to have prison guards, let's pray that they are Christians, honorable, decent men. Because bad being in prison, no prison is good. But a corrupt and evil guard can make it much, much worse.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, lots of good movies about that out there. Let's move on to the news. The Bishop Ruch trial has blown up. If you've paid any attention to Anglican Inc. over the last several days, you've noticed a couple stories about the Ruch trial. And this involves some great characters who we've dealt with in the past. A certain lawyer in Charleston who's done a lot of good work for the ACNA, and he's done a lot of good work for the Diocese of South Carolina. It was the lead prosecutor on the Ruch trial, and he has resigned, George.
C. Alan Runyon. Mm-hmm. Many of you will know that name from the Diocese of South Carolina's legal fights with the Episcopal Church. He was the one that took it all the way up to the Supreme Court, South Carolina, and so he's known. He's a lawyer of much experience, much gravitas, if you will. There was an incident in the trial of Stuart Ruch. This is being conducted via Zoom. Now, some of the rules for the trial are not to my liking, but hey, what does that matter? Yeah. One of this is this is closed proceeding. In other words, it's all by Zoom. There are the 7 members of the trial court, counsel for both sides, and the defendants. As a member of the press, I cannot view this or watch this, and nobody else can watch it. I think this was a bad move. Politically,
we discussed that last week. We said last week.
There you go. Well, during the trial, a member of the trial board, one of the 7, if you will, judges, began to talk about and discuss things that were not brought into evidence by the court. And this was questions about the integrity of the investigatory process. The law firm that investigated Ruch and everybody. Now, I wasn't there, so I cannot verify any of this. I can only sort of repeat what I was told as it's filtered through the people who heard, and they may not have had firsthand knowledge that they think they have. But long and the short of it is that there was bias against Ruch, bias in favor against the victims by the investigatory team.
Sure.
This is the allegation. And the trial, I'll call them a judge, but they're, I don't know what you would call them. One of the members of the trial board raised these issues. Now, Runyon, the lawyer, said, wait a second. You cannot consider things not brought properly in evidence. You cannot bring in outside things, but basically based on your own investigation into the court and decide based on those issues, because that's just not how our system works.
That's not what's before us now. Before us now are the allegations for Bishop Ruch. And now church courts operate a little differently than civil courts and other things like that. The judge ultimately in this court would be Archbishop Wood, correct?
End of the day, the College of Bishops and Archbishop Wood, at the end of the day, as it goes through. Now, if any of you watch Perry Mason or any legal drama on TV, you know that you cannot bring in extraneous things either to impugn the character of the defendant or to impugn the prosecution. The people deciding this, the jury and the judges, must basically have all the same information that has gone through a legal process being verified and vetted and tested. So if there are allegations of investigatory misconduct, that has to be tested. You just can't throw that out there. And if it is raised, that you need to have both sides have the opportunity to challenge, explore it, so that the truth can be unveiled. Okay. So this member of the court is going off the rails. And they went off the rails so badly that last Friday, I think 4 days into the trial, Runyon said, look, I can't, this is so tainted. Oh, I'm out of here. I need to resign in protest against what is happening. It sounds like a Stuart Grisham runaway jury or runaway judge novel sort of thing, but this was happening.
Sure.
And so Runyon informed Archbishop Wood verbally on Friday. He memorialized this in a letter on Saturday. And on Sunday night, Archbishop Wood released a statement saying, we've got a problem. Alan Runyon's resigned, but I'm going to look for a new prosecutor to go forward. Simultaneous to that, we got the document dumps. Anglican Unscripted, Anglican Inc. did. And we wrote a story that night on what we learned.
Yep.
Which we could document from the information we had and from our sources. The next morning, Archbishop Wood put out a new letter, basically going into a bit of detail, which is sort of, coincidentally, it came after and responded to issues we raised in our article. And then they also put out Runyon's letter. And so everything's now out there, more or less. The name of the person who made the bad actor in the trial court's not been released. And the people said, we're not going to tell you who that is. So don't ask, we don't know. So the situation is now that Runyon has had to go back to the witnesses and to the people harmed, saying, look, I'm sorry, this thing is blown up and here's why. And as of our going to the broadcast today, they're looking for a new prosecutor to take the thing forward. Runyon's point in his letter was that this is the pool. It's tainted, and we would in civil court or criminal court, we say a mistrial needs to be called with a new jury and everything because it's just improper.
Well, it's not that they're tainted; it's that once they are tainted, they can't be untainted. Getting a new prosecutor will not untaint the testimony and stuff that was introduced that should not have been introduced into this thing. You can't just wake up and disregard, even though a judge will tell you, disregard what that witness said. It can't be done. The taint is there. A mistrial should be called.
Now, there are levels of this thing. This has been going on for 5 years now. The indictment was, I'll call it an indictment, but a presentment. Presentment's a better word.
Yeah.
Was finally released pretty late in the game. So that going into this, we didn't know the names of the 3 bishops who had brought the presentment. We had heard stuff from the ACNA 2 people that they were shut out of the process. And finally, all this has come out. And what has happened was that about 5 years ago, this all began. And allegedly, Bishop Ruch did nothing for 2 years. And then he finally acted. But his actions were not helpful, according to the accusers. And a lay group of people brought presentments, and then 3 bishops brought presentments. And the bishops were, I want to say Bob Ross, but that's not it.
I have the names here somewhere.
Ken Ross. Bob Ross is the guy with the fuzzy hair.
The artist,
the painting
yes.
show.
Uh-huh.
Ken Ross of the Rocky Mountains, Bishop Gillen of, I think he's an REC bishop, and Todd Hunter of C4SO.
Right.
They brought the presentment. And Ruch's lawyers filed a motion saying, well, they don't have firsthand knowledge. And this took them about 2 years. Meanwhile, the lay presentment was also presented. And finally, when this all got sorted out, the court said, we're going to go with the bishop's presentment and put the lay one aside. So one of the complaints that had been made is that the lay people who had complained are not in part of this trial. Well, it's because they're taking the bishop's material and running with that. That's the presentment they're working with. So there have been legal maneuvers that have pushed this thing into its fifth year now, more or less. And if there's Ruch's lawyers have filed a motion for a directive verdict, meaning now we need to have a not guilty plea because of this issue. Look at it this way: if Ruch is now found guilty, this will be appealed and go on for a few more years because the the trial court was tainted. Well, but George, it was tainted in Ruch's favor, not against Ruch, because the claim is he had an unfair investigation. Still, the lawyers can argue this, and I've been hard on Archbishop Wood a few shows because I've not agreed with some of the policies that they've implemented as to regards to transparency and communication. But I have to say, this has been handed to him.
Yeah,
this started under Archbishop Foley Beach. Mm-hmm. This was dropped in his lap. And I'm characterizing this maybe unfairly, but he's acting like how 9 out of 10 parish rectors would if you've got this sort of problem.
Sure. Well,
but not as an archbishop in a very legalistic system.
No, but sure. Kudos for the communication now that's come out of the ACNA. You know, we're getting some communications. It letting us know what happened, their side of the story. But I need to back up and give my opinion here. This is a perfect example of why we have mistrials. You need to start over. The taint is there, and you will get a new prosecutor. You'll go back into court. There'll be a verdict, and no matter what, it will be appealed because of the taint that has been brought before here. Now, you are only allowed to discuss the evidence brought before the court based on those accusations. You're not allowed to bring in other things, even if those other things are true or not true. You're not allowed to bring them into the court setting. So I don't know.
After our last show, some people commenting on our show said, "Well, you say it was cover-up. That wasn't one of the charges," and they're correct. I should say the charges against Ruch are, and I'll read them as they are written.
Sure.
Habitual neglect of episcopal duties, conduct causing scandal or offense, including abuse of ecclesiastical power, violation of ordination vows, willful contravention of denominational canons and constitution. So there's no claim that Ruch did anything criminal, in other words, but rather his actions as an administrator were not up to the standards set by the ACNA.
Actions are inactions.
His actions are inactions, part of which would come under the general rubric of sort of trying to make this thing go away. So when I would say cover up, it's not accused of cover up, but the actions that underlie it, I would classify in that way. He has not been found guilty of these. These are allegations, so I can't say that he's guilty of this. No. But this is where things stand.
Well, now let's go back to a practical matter here. Is there bishop training on how to be a bishop? Is there a second?
Well, they have these
seminary
baby bishop classes that are more like. No, there's no staff college. There's no staff college for bishops like you have in the military. And a staff college is not a week with some other guys who or girls who are bishops like we have in the Anglican world. And those are social events. And you get somebody go give a talk about Athanasius for an hour and a half while your wife is at the pool. That's not, the bishop's training is non-existent. Yeah. That's not true. It exists, but it does not train bishops to actually do the real world stuff. It gives a general stab at it. Well, when you have, if you will, first generation bishops like Stuart Ruch, he was the first bishop of the diocese of Upper Midwest. Upper Midwest. Yeah. He has no memory, so to speak, organic, or what's the phrase? Institutional memory to draw upon. We've always done it this way. This is how we did it. This is how your predecessors did it. So in some cases, these guys are winging it, and we now see the problems when you wing it.
Well, if found guilty, yes. Now, that is a bigger problem here is, first-gen bishops, and you cannot run a diocese like you run a church. That does not work. You can't run a diocese like a large church. Doesn't work. A diocese and the creatures and churches and clergy within it are something that's mastered at a different level. And, I have nothing to say to that because I could not teach a bishop except how to reboot a computer. George, let's move on to some more stories here, and I'll pull up my little show notes. Next, oh boy. We could spend the next 5 hours talking about the Brits, but let's talk about what you sent me here. Lawless Britain. Church is once again on the wrong side of the issues on crime and immigration, abortion, end of life issue. There's no topic politically that I can think of the Church of England being on the right side of currently.
Actually, they'll give credit where credit is due. Okay. They're on the right side of euthanasia. They're saying the recent parliamentary bill's bad. And there are some, and it is a cross-section from Rowan Williams to conservative evangelicals who are standing up to the abortion law. But by and large, at the Episcopal level, the issues of crime and immigration, the hierarchy is on the wrong side or totally absent.
Now, let's back up and talk about what the UK is like right now. It's dystopian. Okay, they've allowed immigration for many years, and they've opened their cities to immigrants coming in from foreign lands, largely of one religion, of one populace, and they have slowly replaced future Brits. And in doing so, this is so important that any news contrary to the plans of immigration must not be reported.
This is not just a UK problem. This is a European problem. You see this problem in Germany. Some places like Poland and Slovakia, no, they don't have this problem because they have very strict immigration laws. Germany, Britain, France, Sweden, other places, yes, there's a replacement of the population by immigration, unfettered, unchecked immigration. And one of the consequences of this, of people who refuse to acculturate, to assimilate into the culture. In England, we're seeing, and we're not seeing this in the BBC or in the newspapers. You're seeing it, though, in social media. You're seeing it in alternative media sources, which actually are more truthful than the BBC is on most issues. One thing, for instance, in Epping, which is in Essex, right on the borderline with London on the east side. There have been a series of nightly protest rallies that have drawn up to over 1,000 people. Because recently the government put all these immigrants, men, into a hotel in the town, and they basically house them there and give them spending money. And these guys walk around, and some of them are accosting young girls in the town. One is accused of rape. And the women of Epping, and men, but the women are the ones standing in the front lines and protesting, get these people out of here. These people are unsafe. We're being invaded. This is and the police response with the Essex Constabulary and cops from Hertfordshire and some from London is to come in their full, armored vests, like they're dealing, with like
terrorists.
The worst of with terrorists.
Yeah,
and these are working class people complaining about their country being taken. Just some of the things you pick up. Last weeks or so, a 24-year-old father is brutally stabbed to death in a nice part of London after a man tried to steal his watch. Or a court decision, Albanian with 50 criminal convictions, 50, was allowed to stay in Britain after a judge ruled that his crimes weren't extreme enough for him to be sent home. Or a pensioner who said, quote, he just wanted to go home, was beaten to death in Islington, which is in London, by 3 teenage girls who filmed the brutal assault on their phone for entertainment. Or an asylum seeker from Syria Muhammad Wahib Muhammad, who was illegally working in Britain, repeatedly raped a 12-year-old girl in Birmingham. Where is the Church of England? Where is it standing with its people? Where is it standing with its parishioners? Where is it standing for the downtrodden and the oppressed? Nowhere. You won't see. And Britain's turned into Gotham City. A whole chaotic,
Dystopia.
dark, degraded society, a lawless society.
Uh-huh.
And it's happening in Ireland, too.
Mm-hmm.
Ireland, in some cases, is worse than Britain, UK, but in Northern Ireland, they have a town that has an annual bonfire in the summer, and some of the people put in a little effigy of boat people because there have been protests over immigrant crime in Northern Ireland and in Ireland. And the Archbishop of Armagh, John McDowell, oh, how mean, you shouldn't burn these effigies. Where is he in sympathy and support for the victims of predator gangs, these Islamic Muslim predator gangs? Where is he speaking out on protecting the culture and the faith and the security of the people of Northern Ireland or the people of Britain? They're nowhere. If they are talking, they're talking in favor of the immigrants.
But that's just it. They have an empty empathy here. They don't understand the long-term consequences of their empathy. We need to help and save, through a biblical command, the downtrodden immigrants and bring them here to the country and make life better for them. Where, yeah, but what's the long-term consequences? Well, the long-term consequences here is the fall of your society. And
yeah. Allie Beth Stuckey is a young woman. She's a commentator on the internet, and she appears on Fox News from time to time. She's come up with the phrase toxic empathy.
Toxic, okay.
The elites, the Archbishop McDowells, the Sarah Mullalys, the Justin Welbys, the Keir Starmers, the
everybody else, yes.
Karen
the
Bass of Los Angeles.
BBC, yes.
The mayor of Los Angeles. They have a toxic empathy. They, through emotions of empathy, they're importing into society a destructive, harmful element.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this gets projected outwards, where they're the first ones to criticize and damn Israel. But have we heard a word from any of these characters about the massacres that are taking place right now about the Druze in southern Syria? It got so bad that the Druze of Israel, civilians, crossed the border to fight the Bedouin and Syrian army people who are trying to kill their co-religionists. And do we hear, like, Amal Clooney, George Clooney's wife, the international lawyer, her mother's a Druze. Do you see her talking about this? No, instead it's Israel, bad, Gaza, terrible. You know, the problem with Gaza, if they release the hostages that they have, I think we'd see something change. But instead, we have what we have.
We do. Well, at least they have a good King Charles who's probably going to help us with the problem, George. So.
Oh, you mean the King Charles who just took part in the pagan ceremony at High Story, at whatever it is, where he dresses up in feathers and chants to Mother Earth with the Mexican pagan shaman? That King Charles?
That's the guy.
Or the one who opens the Islamic Center in Oxford? That King Charles, or the one who, in response to the 7/7, which was the subway bombing 20 years ago that killed...
For them, yeah.
It was Britain's 9/11, perpetuated by Muslim terrorists, terrorists of the Muslim faith, who his response was, as we remember this time, and I'll quote, can we live together with mutual respect and understanding, always standing firm against those who seek to divide us? Stand firm not against those who hate us and want to kill us and want to destroy our country, but stand firm against those who speak out against the invasion. My friends, with Mom gone, Charles has gone off the rails. I'm sorry. I have no say in this fight whatsoever, but if I were English, boy, oh boy, I would become a Republican in a British sense, in a heartbeat,
In a heartbeat.
if this is the monarchy that we have. Not
Well,
a U.S. Republican, but a Republican in a British sense.
yeah. I mean, that's the problem, is the trend. The trend now is for most European countries to, over the next generation, go from their native cultures into the ones that they're currently immigrating and importing. And they do that because in Sweden, the replacement rate, the birth rate is, I think, 1.6. Okay, in England, it's 1.8. And so you, as a native population, are not repopulating yourselves enough to even keep up with your current population. The immigrants the immigrants you're bringing in are having 6, 7, 8 kids. They're doing just fine.
Over 40% of the immigrants that Britain has brought in are on public benefits, welfare. They're not working. They're not contributing to the society. They're not bringing in anything. All the talk about, well, we need these people. No, you don't. But it's not just a British problem. In Japan, there has been election, and a Japanese a brand new party that critics like to say are the Donald Trump, the MAGA Japanese, make Japan great again, have won 20 seats coming from nothing, removing the Liberal Democratic Party's majority, and they are anti-immigration. That they're worried about these people from Pakistan and other Middle Eastern countries who come to take menial jobs are causing a skyrocketing problem in Japan. Mm-hmm. You got to ask yourself, at what point, why is it? Why is it that Egypt will not allow anybody from Gaza into their country? Why is it that no Arab country whatsoever will accept immigrants from Gaza? But France and Britain and Germany, they're open the doors wide open. Is it toxic empathy? Is it a death wish for your culture? Is it such a degree of hatred for your culture and your world and society that you are seeking to import the very things that will destroy it? It's like the joke that you see, gays for Palestine. Mm-hmm. Hey, wake up, if you are gay in Palestine, they're going to take you to a high roof and throw you off and kill you.
Well, to be quite honest, it's anti-colonialism. Okay, people hate themselves so much because of their privilege, their white privilege, and they hate the colonialism that was caused over the last 3 or 4 centuries, and they blame themselves for the ills of earth. Well, if they bring immigration in, anti-colonialism, they're going to solve that problem of the white society and the white colonialist. Even though this is Muslim colonialism, this is Islamic colonialism, this is exactly the book of the Quran and how to get it done right. So,
well, we're in a place where John Cleese, in The Life of Brian, is more relevant to intellectual commentary today than any member of the Church of England's hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Who is Mr. Bean? The actor.
Come on. I got to Google this. Yeah.
His public comments about free speech are more relevant to the life of England and of America than anything that the current British administration or the leaders of the Episcopal Church of the Church of England are saying. Rowan Atkinson.
The other Rowan, yes.
The other Rowan Atkinson. And that, he said, the right to offend must be greater than the right against being offended. Yeah. And that is true, because otherwise the whole basis of Western democracy and scientific inquiry is on challenging. And Britain is introducing through the back door blasphemy laws to protect only Islam. You can't point out that Muhammad was a pedophile, or that, as is stated in the Quran, with his child bride, or that the call to kill anybody who leaves Islam, or the call to kill Jews and anybody not be friends with people who are non-Muslims. All of that, if you raise that in public, you're accused of a hate speech and a hate crime. Or we had a Muslim, a Kurd, or an ex-Muslim, burn the Quran in a public London place, and it was attacked by another Muslim with a knife. And the guy who burned the Quran is in jail, not the guy who brought out the knife to attack the ex-Muslim. Because, according to the wisdom of the London Metropolitan Police, the offense of causing offense is greater than actually knifing somebody. That's how sick we are. That's the Gotham City. And here's the thing. In the midst of this, the Church of England is going to bring a new Archbishop of Canterbury. Mm-hmm. And odds are that they'll get another drone. The people so far being touted are pretty unimpressive. What they need is Batman. What they just like Ronald Reagan turned around the Carter years, and Donald Trump seemed to turn around the Biden years. Huh? Yes, the leader does matter.
Sure does.
And
they need
the Church
a Margaret
of England
Thatcher.
More than anything else needs a Margaret Thatcher. Now, for Britain, some people were brought up hating Margaret Thatcher for class and culture reasons. But my friends, unless you act soon, it's over.
Yeah. No. Well, no. To be quite honest, I think it is over. I think if the population, native populations of Europe cannot reproduce at rates that are reproducible, it's over. Key is South Korea. South Korea is 60 years from, having no population. So it's absolutely crazy. Let's move on. We've been talking now for 40 minutes, and we're only on story 3. New primate for Australia. Yay! Mark Short is the new primate. Tell me a little bit about him, George.
Mark Short of Canberra, Goulburn. He's the first non-archbishop to elected primate. Traditionally, the primacy would either be from Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, the 5 archbishops of Australia, provincial archbishops. This time around, the 2 liberal primates, Goldsworthy of Perth and Greaves of Brisbane, Queensland, basically are too far left. Kanishka Raphael of Sydney and Richard Conde, even though he's not a primate, he's Bishop of Tasmania, were considered by the left to be too conservative. So the sort of center emerged. Matt Brain of Bendigo and Mark Short of Canberra, Goulburn. And after the first round, it was clear that the laity and the clergy backed Mark Short, and the bishops were tending to support Brain. Well, the bishops came around and they backed Mark Short. And I think this is a good choice. He's a product of Sydney. Now, he does not have the power that an archbishop has, say, in the United States or in America, in England or in other countries. The power remains with the diocese and the local leaders. But in international Anglican gatherings, we will see a shift. Philip Aspinall, who used to be primate, was a liberal. Then it was followed by Philip Freer, who was a fence-sitter, conservative on some things, liberal on others, but usually he just pushed the status quo. I don't want to say I'm confident, but I hopefully expect a hopeful expectation that Mark Short will be a voice for the faith in the councils of the primates.
Let's hope so. Well, congratulations. Let's move on to some more news. We've talked about the seal of confession before, and it has hit the news again because for once it's gone our way. Federal courts have blocked the Washington state law on the sanctity of the confessional. The court stays the implementation of the new law because they say it's not fair because lawyers can keep their seal of confidentiality. Why can't the clergy do so likewise, George?
Yeah, a new law signed into law by the governor of Washington state was to take effect July 27th that removed the defense of the seal of confession. So if a clergyperson, clergyman, clergywoman, priest, minister, heard a confession and heard something that was criminal, they could no longer not be compelled to testify to that. The Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church and evangelical groups filed suit saying this violated religious freedom. And the court, the federal court in Washington, issued a preliminary injunction against the introduction of the law, saying the balance of the law as it stands, it is likely this law will be overturned for being unconstitutional. And he pointed out that, as you mentioned, Kevin, lawyers and doctors still have the right to confidentiality. They cannot be compelled to testify about what the client or patient told them. And the court said, well, this is unequal treatment because you're saying these classes are allowed this confidentiality, while this other class, the clergy, are not allowed this confidential protection, which they've been historically given. So it's either all or none. You can't cut out the clergy if you don't cut out doctors and lawyers. Now, the Anglicans in Washington State, the Episcopal Church, they didn't put any money into the lawsuit because the Catholics have a lot of money, let them pay for it. But Gretchen Rayberg, who's the Bishop of Spokane, told us, Anglican Inc., that there's no wiggle room in the Book of Common Prayer. You may not disclose this. And so a priest who does, in compliance with the law, would be violating their ordination vows. Now, what they would do about that, she didn't really want to go down that road, but she said, no, absolutely no, you can't do this. But she went on to tell me that, well, absolution for a crime, you can set a condition that you must go to the police and tell them that you committed this crime before I give you absolution.
Absolutely.
So an Episcopal priest, an Anglican priest, can do this. However, they can't, if the police come to them and say, what did he tell you?
No.
No. So this is a good news story. I think we're seeing, it's an all or nothing. Either you have confidentiality for those who traditionally have had it, doctors, lawyers, clergy, or you don't.
Yeah. And I would be more interested in what a person told a lawyer than what he told the clergy person. He'll tell the clergy person, I killed somebody. He'll tell the lawyer where he buried the body.
Now, the difference is that for the clergy, theologically speaking, you're not talking to the priest or the minister. You're talking to God, and the priest is just the agent. Mm-hmm. So it's different from confessing what you've done to your doctor. In my fit of madness, I stabbed my wife, or my lawyer. Yeah, I did it, but how are we going to get out of this? Mm-hmm. I mean, so God is not really involved with doctors and lawyers, but he is with priests, hopefully.
Yeah, a clergy person is not an officer of the court. He's an officer, an agent of heaven. All right, let's move on and talk. Oh, boy. Going back to England, the dystopian capital of the world. We talk about the Church of England's General Synod. We're going to give a quick update. And the quick update is just to describe what happened in the Episcopal Church over the last 40 years. If you give the devil an inch, he'll take it all. You can't really, say, just compromise a little bit. When you've compromised with evil, you've completely given away the whole gambit. And that's what we're seeing here. And let's talk about that, George. You have said, well, you got 9 different points. You read it.
Okay, we covered General Synod last week, but the final day of Synod occurred on our taping day. And so we didn't touch on the things that happened on that last day. And the one that I would want to raise is the decision to get rid of issues in human sexuality. That was a statement put out by the bishops about 20-odd years ago as a statement on what the Church of England was thinking about human sexuality. It essentially said no sex outside of male-female marriage. And that statement has been one of the guidelines used for ordinands. If you were studying to be a minister in the Church of England, you had to abide by these standards. A few years ago, 2023 it was, I think, Synod said, well, we need to come up with a new statement that is more relevant to where we are today, because some people don't like this, others don't like that. And the bishops, your job is to do that. Well, they haven't done it yet. But this time, a motion was brought forward to get rid of the statement, even though they haven't a new statement. Now, the conservatives said, well, no big deal. The Church of England's doctrine and discipline isn't set by issues in human sexuality. It's just a summary of what else is there. So no harm, no foul, because it really doesn't set anything.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Well, what can
Now,
happen?
the liberals are saying, well, this is outmoded and outdated, and it doesn't describe things the way they should be. And so with the almost near unanimous approval, this passed, except for Debbie Buggs, who was a lay delegate from London, parishioner at St. Helens Bishopsgate. And she said, look, you're trying to, what were her words? Is this a sticking plaster, not a surgical removal, noting the bishops had not done their job. And yet we were going ahead and removing the Band-Aid we have without anything to replace it, to actually doing the surgery and the hard work. Well, they ignored Debbie Buggs and voted for it. And people like Ian Paul wrote little articles saying, well, this changes nothing. And, you know, this is sort of the good government guys. These are people who operate on reason, logic, tradition, you know, what the English language says and mean, how you construct and construe what words mean. And then you have the liberals. So Charlie Bell afterwards said, it's all now changed. I, who just got married in a gay marriage, I can keep doing this, and I can marry my buddies, and you know, the people who are in seminary who are gay, they can go out and do it all. And people say, and Ian Paul wrote a thing, well, Charlie Bell, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You give an inch, they take a yard. There is no, when you're dealing with zealots, you know, logic and reason and rules, they don't matter. It's the issue that matters for them. And one of my little favorite analogies, badges. We don't need no stinking badges.
No.
That's from the Treasure of Sierra Madre, and that's Mexican bandits pretending to be federales. And they are asked to prove their identity by showing their badges. And the answer is, might makes right. We don't need no badges. We're going to take the issue. We're going to take it as it comes. So I have to say, this was a disastrous decision, because it's a disastrous decision because now the English will say, well, we're English, we're not Americans, and you know, Charlie Bell is an outlier. I said, yeah, right. You know, human nature is so different in England than it is from any place else that the left will not take advantage and run you into the ground, because they have pride and character and dignity, unlike every other place in the world.
Well, history shows us that when you give an inch, it's all over, especially in the Episcopal Church. The Episcopal Church slowly just gave inch to inch to inch to the liberals and always said, we're not changing anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if we don't change the prayer book, nothing's been changed. If we don't change don't worry. This is just, we're changing commas and changing a little grammar. Nothing bad is going to happen to the Episcopal Church. Kevin and George, go, leave us alone.
Until you reach the stage the Episcopal Church is where, well, we need to get the Book of Common Prayer in sync with how we do things. Ooh. We need to change the doctrine and discipline of the Church of England to match the facts on the ground. Yeah. So the Episcopal Church never started with prayer book revision or theological reflection. It started by allowing things, and then once they became achieved a critical mass, then the call was to change everything, to include the prayer book.
Yeah, if we are
so Church of England, stupid move, and I'll use the word stupid move, naive mood,
amateur move, yeah. and you know,
this is how but you know, the conservatives always get played like this in the Episcopal Church and the Church of England. The conservative political types, they always think they can make a deal. They always think that, you know, that the personal understanding they reach with somebody on the other side will be binding on anybody else. It isn't, it won't, and it never will be.
No, you're not playing on a level field. All right, last story. Yeah, I buried the page here. Global South leaders have met in London. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, Justin Badiarama, the president of the Global South Fellowship of Anglicans, Titus Chung, the vice chairman or the administrator, and Sami Shahada, the Archbishop of Alexandria, met with conservative leaders last Saturday. And then they went to All Souls Langham Place on Sunday and to meet and worship. And the message Justin Badiarami gave was, now is not the time to leave the Church of England, but stand together and fight for the gospel. Anglo-Catholics, evangelicals, conservative evangelicals, all the different stripes and tribes of English traditional Christianity need to put aside their bitterness, their pride, their divisions, their one-upmanships, and fight the common fight. And in his sermon, Bishop Justin said that in Sudan, when a snake enters your hut, you do not move out of your hut. You get rid of the snake. His message was to the conservatives of the Church of England, get rid of the snakes in the Church of England. Do it. Do it now.
Well, the problem we have in the Church of England is the leadership is the snakes. The current structure is snake supportive, and
snake affirming, Kevin.
Snake affirming. In fact, the leadership thinks the Global South and GAFCON are the snakes and want to throw them out. That's one of the bigger issues here. The Church of England has lost its message years ago, and I don't know. You and I discussed it. A new Canterbury Archbishop of Canterbury will not fix this, at least from the poll we see.
Well, God is in charge, Kevin, and He may surprise us.
Okay, I'll give it. Having been surprised a million times already by the God I worship, yes, I agree. God is in charge, and God will surprise us. And it would be really nice if, in my lifetime, He surprises the heck out of me over the Church of England.
Now, Kevin, I didn't add this because I didn't want it automatically to be canceled, but there's new corruption in India stories I can share.
Come on.
Okay.
52 minutes. We're giving the audience an extra 7 minutes to go and do whatever
you
you
don't want to hear about the latest corruption scandals in India? No?
Not according to our statistics yet.
Okay.
And I mean, I would say most of our audience tuned in to get the Bishop Ruch update. Great reporting, George. The article is amazing on Anglican.inc. I recommend our audience go there and read it to get all the details. There'll clearly be some updates to that. I would suggest, what is that little gnat around here? Sorry. I would suggest a mistrial be called in this, but I'm not in charge, George. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 925.